truth makes you vulnerable. Honesty leads to being used. Transparency turns into manipulation. These are the uncomfortable realities that most self-help gurus prefer not to acknowledge. However, today we will delve into the ruthless wisdom of a man who perhaps understood the essence of power better than anyone in history. Niccolò Machiavelli did not care about being loved. He was interested in victory. And his most controversial thought? Sometimes cunning is necessary for victory. Imagine two politicians battling for a position. Alex is completely honest. He openly discusses the upcoming challenges. He refuses to make false promises and believes that the truth will earn him the respect of the people. His opponent, James, sees the game differently. He tells the public exactly what they want to hear and spins the truth to create a picture of confidence and simple solutions. On election day, who do you think will win? It will be James. Not because he is the better leader, but because he understands that people do not vote for the truth. They vote for the story they want to believe in. I know what you are thinking. Is deception really a bad thing? Is honesty truly a virtue? But what if I told you that your moral absolutism might be what is holding you back from greatness? What if the most successful people in history, those we admire and study, knew about cunning in a way that you do not? Today, we will explore the harsh truths of Machiavelli regarding power, deception, and why the winners in history have rarely been the most honest players. This is uncomfortable knowledge. This is unpleasant wisdom, but perhaps it is exactly what you need to hear. Let us begin with perhaps the most famous and controversial statement by Machiavelli. In his masterpiece, The Prince, he noted that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. This simple statement contradicts everything that modern leadership books preach. We are told that leaders should inspire, connect, and show empathy. Machiavelli would call this dangerous naivety. People are, by nature, treacherous beings who will not keep their promises to you. Therefore, you are not obligated to keep your promises to them. This harsh assessment of human nature lies at the core of Machiavelli's thinking. He believed that people are primarily selfish, ungrateful, and fickle. Understanding this truth, you realize that excessive honesty is not a virtue but foolishness. But why is this important for you? Because whether it is managing a business, a team, negotiating a salary, or social interactions, you are involved in power dynamics. And in these dynamics, revealing all your cards is not a strategy, it is capitulation. Think back to the last time you were completely honest in negotiations. What came of it? Did the other party respond with the same honesty? Or did they use your openness against you? If you are like most people, you learned this lesson through personal experience. But perhaps you still feel uncomfortable with the idea of strategic deception. Let me ask you, editor of subtitles A, Sinetskaya proofreader Phi, Sukiashvili. Have you ever told someone that their new haircut looks great, even though it did not? Or perhaps you exaggerated your interest in a friend's creative project, or remained silent about your true feelings to maintain a relationship. Congratulations! You are already applying Machiavellian principles. The only difference is that you use deception as a defense to avoid conflicts. Machiavelli, on the other hand, suggests using it strategically to achieve your own goals. In the journey through the complex landscape of human relationships, Machiavelli offers us another important realization in the form of a powerful metaphor involving two animals that symbolize different approaches to leadership. One of Machiavelli's most expressive metaphors compares effective leaders to two animals, the fox and the lion. You must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to scare off wolves, he argued. The fox embodies cunning and strategy, while the lion represents strength and intimidation. The lion cannot protect itself from traps, and the fox cannot handle wolves. Therefore, it is necessary to be both a fox and a lion. Napoleon Bonaparte perfectly demonstrates this duality. As a military strategist, Napoleon was a true fox, deceiving enemies about his movements, feigning weakness to lure opponents into traps, and employing psychological warfare to undermine the enemy's morale. In the campaign of 1805 at Austerlitz, he convinced the Austrians of his weakness and retreat in order to quickly surround and defeat them. But Napoleon also knew how to be a lion, instilling overwhelming strength and intimidation, as he did when he returned from exile and took France without a single shot due to his authority and reputation. Most people strive for success using only one approach. They are either completely open and straightforward like a lion, or exclusively manipulative like a fox. True Machiavellian success lies in the ability to choose the right moment for each strategy. Steve Jobs embodied both of these traits. His ability to distort reality resembled the cunning of a fox, convincing people of the possibility of the impossible. Was it dishonest? Perhaps, but it was how he inspired teams to achieve breakthroughs they could not have dreamed of. At the same time, Jobs could be intimidating and persistent, combining the cunning of a fox and the power of a lion. The key is understanding the context and the stakes. In high-stakes situations, where significant interests are at stake, honesty can become a luxury that one cannot afford. In less significant situations or with close allies, transparency helps build trust that will be needed in the future. Perhaps the most controversial teaching of Machiavelli is his view on the relationship between truth, virtue, and its visible manifestation. He boldly stated, "Everyone sees how you appear, but few know how you really are." A prince is not required to possess all the good qualities I mentioned earlier, but he must certainly appear to have them. Julius Caesar mastered this principle perfectly. Although he was effectively a dictator, he sought to maintain the appearance of respect for republican traditions. When offered a crown in public, he refused, while behind the scenes, he consolidated his power. He appointed senators and maintained traditional offices, but stripped them of real influence. Caesar understood that the Romans needed to believe in the existence of the Republic, even as he transformed it into what would later become an empire. External constitutional legitimacy was more important than its reality. This understanding contradicts all the motivational posts on social media that advocate for being genuine. Machiavelli would find such advice naive. He knew that the world judges by appearances, not by substance. Consider social media influencers showcasing perfect lives, while behind the scenes they face struggles, politicians who display family values but behave differently in private, and corporations that promote environmental responsibility while quietly compromising. This is deception. Yes, effective, but wait. I am not suggesting being two-faced. No, what I propose and what Machiavelli suggested is a strategic discrepancy between what you show in public and what you do in private when necessary to achieve your goals. Think of it this way. When you are on a first date, do you immediately reveal all your flaws and insecurities? Of course not. You present your best self. Gradually, as trust builds, you reveal more of your true essence. This is not deception. It is strategic self-presentation, and the same applies in the professional sphere. In a job interview, you do not disclose your weaknesses unless directly asked. When presenting a business idea, you emphasize strengths and ignore risks. This is not lying. It is a strategic emphasis on certain truths. Here, Machiavelli truly differed from traditional wisdom. He believed that sometimes what seems cruel in the short term can be kinder in the long term. Conversely, what appears kind in the short term may lead to greater suffering over time. It is safer to be feared than loved, because love is maintained through commitments, which, due to the low nature of people, are broken at every opportunity for their benefit. But fear holds you through threats and punishments that never fail. Napoleon understood this principle perfectly. After seizing power in France following the chaos and bloodshed of the Revolution, he implemented seemingly harsh measures. He centralized power, created an efficient bureaucracy, and ruthlessly suppressed opposition. However, these seemingly cruel actions created stability after years of turmoil. By establishing clear authority quickly, rather than attempting to do so more gradually and gently, Napoleon prevented the greater brutality of ongoing chaos and civil disorder. Let me provide a contemporary example. Imagine you are a manager who has noticed that one of your employees is consistently underperforming. You could choose a gentle approach, avoiding difficult conversations, offering subtle remarks, and hoping for improvement. A more stringent approach involves direct confrontation, setting clear consequences, and possibly termination if progress is not achieved. At first glance, the gentle approach seems preferable, but what happens over time? Insufficient performance continues to affect the morale of the team. Other employees are forced to compensate for the shortcomings, leading to dissatisfaction. The business suffers. Ultimately, more radical measures are required, affecting even more people and causing greater pain. A temporarily harsh approach, direct confrontation at an early stage, actually prevents more serious consequences in the future. This is Machiavellian thinking in its most paradoxical yet powerful manifestation. Remember Winston Churchill, who became Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during World War II? Did he comfort the nation by saying that the situation was under control? No. He promised his fellow citizens only blood, toil, tears, and sweat. This was a brutal honesty that prepared the country for the sacrifices ahead instead of offering false reassurance. The Machiavellian approach is characterized by a ruthless focus on results rather than on appearances or intentions. The idea that the end justifies the means is one of the most misunderstood concepts of Machiavelli. People often use it to justify selfish behavior. However, Machiavelli argued that in the actions of all people, especially rulers, when there is no higher court for appeal, it is important to look at the outcome. In other words, when the result is of paramount importance and there is no opportunity to appeal to a higher authority, the outcome matters more than the methods. People typically judge by appearances rather than substance, because everyone sees how you seem, and few know who you truly are. Julius Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon, formerly an illegal act of war against Rome, illustrates this principle. By bringing his troops into Italy, Caesar broke the law, but he believed that preventing the destruction of his achievements by Pompey and the Senate justified this violation. History largely vindicates him. The Republic was already in decline, and Caesar's actions, though illegal, laid the groundwork for the Pax Romana, a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity that followed. This principle does not justify any actions for any purpose. It justifies necessary actions for important goals when there is no better alternative. This distinction matters. Recall how Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus during the Civil War, a fundamental constitutional right. Was this a deception? Was it an overreach of presidential power? Probably. But did it help preserve the Union at a time of greatest threat to its existence? Yes, it did. The Machiavellian question is not whether this action is virtuous in itself, but whether it leads to results that serve the common good. Your understanding of the greater good determines which goals justify which means. If your goal is solely personal enrichment, then Machiavellian tactics make you a manipulator. However, if your goal is to create value for others while also benefiting yourself, then the same tactics turn you into a strategic thinker. The Machiavellian knew something important about reputation. It is your most valuable asset, but maintaining it does not require complete transparency. What matters is the alignment between your words and the results achieved, rather than between your words and your methods. The simple-minded are always impressed by appearances and outcomes, he noted. This is not a criticism of people, but an observation of human nature. People primarily judge based on results and superficial impressions, not on behind-the-scenes methods. This promise was a necessity of the past, a broken word, a necessity of the present. Few figures in modern history have mastered this art better than Henry Kissinger. He understood that in politics, perception is reality, and controlling the narrative is as important as the politics themselves. His secret diplomacy with China in the 1970s was conducted in secrecy until the world knew that negotiations were even taking place. It fundamentally changed global power structures. He publicly supported efforts to establish peace in Vietnam while simultaneously prolonging the conflict behind the scenes to improve the United States' negotiating position. He spoke of stability while facilitating covert operations to overthrow governments. As a result, despite these contradictions, Kissinger remains one of the most respected diplomatic figures of the 20th century. His reputation was built not on honesty, but on results. He struck deals that changed the course of world politics. And as Machiavelli would have predicted, people judged him by outcomes rather than methods. Look at modern corporations or governments. Strategic secrecy, controlled leaks, and disinformation campaigns are standard tools of power. Companies like Apple reveal only what they want the public to see, creating demand through anticipation and mystery. Governments shape narratives to maintain influence. These tactics work not because they are honest, but because they create the desired results. The Machiavellian understanding is that your reputation depends not on the perfect honesty of your methods, but on consistently providing value to those around you. If your strategic maneuvers ultimately benefit those around you, your reputation remains unshaken. However, there is an important caveat. Reputation crumbles when deception is perceived as purely selfish rather than in the name of a higher purpose. That is why effective leaders present their actions, even manipulative ones, as being in the interest of stability, progress, or the common good. Because in the end, history remembers not those who played fairly, but those who emerged victorious. This is one of the most cynical yet powerful observations of Machiavelli. Cooperation works because each party fully trusts the other while simultaneously demonstrating strategic confidence to the world. Look at successful business alliances, such as Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, who have maintained unwavering loyalty to each other for decades, skillfully managing their public image. The paradox of Machiavelli is that strategic deception allows one to create true trust with a select few, and these trusted few become your greatest support. We have discussed many controversial topics. I want to clarify that I do not endorse the idea of deception as a universal approach. What I propose, and what Machiavelli suggested, is a strategic understanding of when complete transparency serves your goals and when it may harm them. An ethical Machiavellian uses deception not for selfish gain at the expense of others, but to create value that benefits both themselves and others. They recognize that leadership sometimes requires confidence amidst doubt, that negotiations sometimes require discretion, and that managing perception is as important as managing reality. When determination is strong, difficulties cannot be great. In a world of ideal people, complete honesty might be the best strategy. But in our imperfect world, with imperfect people and complex goals, strategic opacity sometimes brings more benefit than rigid openness. So ask yourself, which goals are most significant to you? What methods will help you achieve these goals most effectively? And when is strategic deception justified by the value it creates for you and others? The final lesson from Machiavelli may be the most important. Power itself is neither good nor evil. It is a tool that amplifies the intent of its user. If your intentions ultimately serve others as well as yourself, Machiavellian strategies are not immoral. They are effective. If this perspective has made you think or provided a new angle on power and strategy, share it with those who need to be aware of these uncomfortable truths. And remember, in a world where virtue often becomes a weapon against the virtuous, a little Machiavellian thinking may be just what is needed to succeed without losing yourself.